What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to take a look at Rookwood and Ranrok in Hogwarts Legacy and talk about them, talk about the positives and the negatives. I've done this kind of thing for a couple other aspects of the game, and I'll be flat out honest. Well, if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know I've actually said this before. They're actually what I would probably say is the weakest element of Hogwarts Legacy. I really think they dropped the ball big time, and we'll explain why, or I'll explain my reasoning, I should say, in this video. I really did not like them, mainly in their usage, mainly in just how little they are used. So let's break down these characters. One final thing is that this is going to go over spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, obviously turn away now, but I want to talk about the resolution of these two characters because that's, I think, a really, really big thing. So again, my number one problem is simply that they're not in this game enough whatsoever. They have a couple scenes each, and when I say a couple, I mean, I think it's more than two, but they maybe have 3 to 5 scenes each, and I would say maybe 10 minutes of screen time for a game that is, dozens and dozens of hours. Now, I did talk about this, maybe I even talked about this leading into the game. It's not all that, crazy for open world games that have villains. It's not crazy for them to not be in the game all that much. In fact, one of the better games in a game that we kind of used as a benchmark, The Witcher 3, that's one of the first things I think of. The Wild Hunt, I personally don't actually think they're one of the best parts of the game. I don't think they're necessarily weak. I think visually they look incredible. They're not in it all that much. Now, I will say they're in it a whole lot more than Ranrok and Rookwood, but I think to them, and I think, okay, when you're in an open world game, or even Mass Effect, like with Reapers, I mean, you can go down the list. It's not mandatory that your main villains are in a game for half the game's length, okay? It's not. This game, though, they're not in it. We talk about Natsai and Poppy not really being up to snuff, at least in my opinion. Compared to Sebastian, well, these villains are not up to snuff compared to others. Now, what they're trying to do, I think, is actually kind of fine. Their impact on the world, I think that's probably above average. So, again, this is not going to be a video of me just bashing it. I do have a couple positive things to say, and that is one of them. When you go around the world in Hogwarts Legacy, you constantly hear them, whether it be from the enemies, and, they have their factions. So, like the Dark Wizards sometimes will talk about Rookwood, and the Goblins will talk about Ranrok, but not just them. You'll go to shopkeepers, and a lot of side quests, right, will be basically caused. The reason why the side quest exists is because those two are doing things. Then you also add in Harlow, right, because he kind of like jumps in, and so he's kind of got a gang that, and he gets mentioned, right, he gets brought up in conversation. But I do like that a lot. So I think they actually have that part. I think they understand that you got to make these characters, even if they're not on screen, right? You have to kind of have a ripple effect throughout the universe, throughout, what they're doing. And they do. So you hear them often. You know that a lot of the things that are happening are because of these two, right? And I think that part they nailed. And I would also say, in terms of acting performance, I thought it was great. We talked about Rookwood leading into this game, even a few days before the game came out, and I had likened him to like Jack Sparrow, where it's like I don't really know what this character is supposed to be. His posture is kind of odd, the way he talks, it's a little like floaty. It literally reminded me of Jack Sparrow, and that's not a bad thing. It was actually kind of odd that it happened so close to when the game came out. And and one of those scenes that we saw leading in, when I saw them in the game, I liked them. I think all the scenes with the characters, I actually really enjoyed. Anytime we saw them, I thought they were doing something cool, or I was interested in their dialogue with each other, except for the endings. So, I mean, that's why we have to bring spoilers into it, because when you get to the end of their arcs, I think I despise maybe both of them. But leading into it, they were really good, and they both had pretty cool little things that they were doing. The final time the two characters are together in Ranrok and Rookwood, when you had Lodgok, I really liked that scene. I liked everything about the scene, right? Everything Ranrok said, Rookwood trying to actually murder Ranrok in the moment, and Ranrok kind of just ducked, and the spell missed. Those were really cool things. Even Rookwood's final conversation to you, right, outside of, in Hogsmeade, I thought was incredible. I really liked it. And, I mean, that has a bigger implication than just that scene, because it connected to Sebastian and all that stuff. But when it came to the endings, I really want to talk about that really fast. No, I'm really not impressed whatsoever. I thought they were specifically Rookwood, I gotta say, it was one of the weakest things I had seen in the entire game. Finishing him off really, and people had said this actually in the comments when I mentioned this in my review, Harlow gets a better ending than Rookwood. Rookwood, flat out, I did not know if he was actually dead. I mean, I knew, as the game goes on and you take out different enemies, like anytime you fight, I think you kill them. Like, I think that's kind of the point in-game, in the universe. Probably why there is no morality system, right? Because you murder hundreds of goblins and dark wizards throughout the entire game. You're really no better than they are. But when you evaporate, Rookwood just kind of evaporates. It's like, wait, and I literally said this out loud. Wait, did I just kill him? Because it's just two little duels, and he's gone, and you're standing there. What's odd about it, I mentioned Harlow. When you do Harlow, at least it's a cutscene. You have your spells match, you win, and then you have the cutscene, and Harlow attacks you, and Natsai gets in the way, right? So I really liked that cutscene. Rookwood, it was in-game. It was literally just gameplay, and he's gone. And then I've mentioned this as well. When you keep going, then you'll just start, telling people. Like, you tell Fig, I had to do what I had to do. Rookwood's dead. And I was like, oh, my God, Rookwood really is gone. It was just so anticlimactic, truly, because not only was he not in the game very much at all, again, 3, 4, 5 scenes, 10 minutes maybe max, and then he dies in that way. And here's the thing, too. I actually liked what they were doing with Rookwood in the limited time we saw him, right? As soon as you realize he's a descendant, right? I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. So they're tying him into the past and these, flashbacks that we're experiencing. They're doing it. And I really liked that, and actually gave him a reason to feel like he has some part of this ancient magic, right? Like it kind of belongs to him. I actually think his reasoning was better than Ranrock's. Ranrock certainly, and you guys will have to correct me if I'm wrong, one of the last things Ranrock says when he walks in and he sees you and Fig, he talks about how goblins built this kind of resting place, therefore giving him the right to it. However he worded it in that moment, I was like, don't tell me that's his reasoning. Because if you think about it, they really don't give a lot of answers throughout this game. We really don't know how he even has that magic. Like the little bit of ancient magic that he has, we don't even really know how he got that. They don't expand upon any of that. And that was kind of a theme, right? Even with you as a character, not really explaining where you came from or your past or why you're a fifth year or any of that stuff. A lot of those things they left completely, out there. So Ranrock kind of makes sense in that way because it's just another thing they didn't explain. But that was something I didn't like. I actually thought Rookwood had more of a reason to, I guess, be there, versus Ranrock. But then I would say the biggest crime with Ranrock was two different things. Number one was doing the old switcheroo. This happens quite a bit. It's not my favorite thing. I don't despise it, but I felt it was worth mentioning. Whenever you have like a villain or an enemy and you can't fight them for whatever reason, so you have to change them into something else, right? Sometimes with like Marvel movies, you'll always just fight CG armies at the end of them, right? Sometimes for games, they'll just change the villain into something else. So Ranrock, well, you can't just do a duel with him. I actually think you could, but here's the thing. You do it with Harlow, and you do it with Rookwood, so maybe they didn't want all three of them to be ended by like a duel, like a Harry versus Voldemort thing. I do understand that. I do understand not having all three of them end like that, but then you make Ranrock a dragon. The fight itself wasn't bad. It was kind of creative, different moves, different stages. You had to use different kinds of magic on the orbs, right, to destroy them. I mean, I think it was well thought out. I just don't love the idea of changing it into something, you know what I mean? It's Ranrock, he's the villain the whole time, and then the real villain is a dragon, and that's what you face. So I didn't love that, but the biggest crime, maybe a second to how they ended Rookwood, was that they don't give you a resolution on Ranrock's character. That's actually the trick I got you in the beginning of the video. There is no end to Ranrock's character. I mentioned this when I talked about the endings. I don't get it. Now, if you guys understand it, you certainly let me know, but I watched it over and over and over again. I watched my wife do it when she was playing through just to make sure my eyes weren't deceiving me. Ranrock's there. He's lying down. He's moving. It cuts to you picking up the wand, and one of the two endings happens, either the good or the bad, right? We don't have to necessarily get into it, but they completely leave Ranrock. Like, they don't tell you. There's not a single conversation after the game ends to explain if he got arrested or if he died. Did, like, the cave fall in and crush him? What happened to him? Nobody says. So that can be, and I've said this before, it can be answered in DLC. It can be answered in a sequel. I don't love that. Why would I pay more? Like, you should have just answered it then. Maybe they did it on purpose to indicate he could still come back and be around. I don't know if I really need him to. And again, that's kind of the thing. At best, these characters were like fine. These two villains, they were serviceable in the time that they were there. But I mean, honestly, it really is. I wanted to make this video because it's one of the weakest aspects of the entire game. I think they were threatening to a degree. I would say that. I liked the scenes they were in. But again, some unanswered questions were just kind of weird. Ending Rookwood was kind of a crime. Even ending Ranrok was honestly kind of a crime as well. So I really don't know what they were thinking, really, with either of those two. I think they did a better job, again, maybe with the entire story of Harlow, who's third in charge. He's kind of one of like Rookwood's lackeys who has his own like clan, right? Like they kind of explain him in the beginning. He has more detail in a lot of ways, and he's definitely got a better conclusion than either of the main villains, which is nuts to me. Absolutely nuts. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on so you know when all these videos go up, and I hope to see you all on the next one.